What's going on, guys? Super Savage 789 here, bringing you guys another video, and today we're doing What If Obito Raised Naruto. I'm very excited for this series, so without further ado, let's hop into today's video. In this timeline, in the aftermath of the QB attack, Toby decides to do something wicked. With how much damage the QB has caused, it'd be a waste to pass up taking the beast again. Just like Madara had before him, he could keep the Nine Tails for a rainy day and use it as a tool for destruction. It'd make the infinite Tsukuyomi way easier as well. So after Minato and Kushina's body turned cold, Toby would return back to the battlefield looking for the Nine Tails, only to find their baby crying in the field. Using his Sharingan, it was quite clear what had happened. That baby's chakra had become that of a Jinchuriki. It wasn't ideal, but extraction wouldn't be too hard to do in this instance. Toby would pick up Naruto and begin to leave until Hiruzen and his Anbu show up. Seeing this masked man holding Naruto, combined with Minato and Kushina's corpse being close by, gives Hiruzen a feared expression. He asks Toby what his plan is with that boy. Raising him to spite the village wouldn't shake their spirits, and that's what he's assuming. At that notion, Toby chuckles a little.
No, don't worry. I wouldn't do something so trivial. This child won't survive past the night, unless of course he can survive the Biju extraction.
Hearing this would make Hiruzen panic, as he understands the situation that had transpired. Before anyone can act, Toby and subsequently the baby vanish in thin air, leaving the old man dumbfounded. As Toby held the baby Naruto, he began going over what Hiruzen had said to him. Raising the boy was a comical thought, but then again, was it really so crazy? Having a Jinchuriki loyal to him would still be a powerful weapon. And with how they left things, the Leaf would simply assume he had simply perished, meaning they'll be looking for a giant fox and not a tiny boy. Plus it'd be an added bonus if he could use his former master's child to torment the Leaf. So he decides that instead of killing the child, he'll raise it as a tool for his greater plans. Returning to Amagakure, Toby would appear in front of Konin and Pain holding a baby to their shock. He explains what happened in the Leaf as well as how he plans to use the boy. So it'll be important in keeping him hidden while training. What better place is there to train him than somewhere as locked off as the Rain Village? Pain voices his distaste for this idea. If any of the 5 great ninja villages catches on to them housing a Jinchuriki, they'll spark war before they can even react. It'd be way easier to simply summon the Gedomazo and seal away the beast. Toby tells his accomplice that he wasn't asking, flaring his Sharingan for the sole purpose of reminding him who's in charge. So, while reluctant, Pain will place Naruto in the Rain Village for the time being. Over in the Leaf, panic could be induced into all the residents. Not only did they lose the 4th Hokage, but their only Jinchuriki has been stolen by an Uchiha. They need to act now, before any other village finds out. Otherwise, they'll be at war. And in this weakened state they're currently in, the likelihood that they win is rather low. Dozens of Anbu and Jonin would be deployed to look for the Nine Tails or Naruto, recognizing that time isn't on their side. Unfortunately, nothing conclusive would come up, making the Leaf in a weakened place. And while they would attempt to hide the fact they're missing a Jinchuriki, with how shinobi spies are located everywhere, it wouldn't take long for news to reach the other major ninja villages. While most wouldn't act, I believe that the Cloud Village would decide that now is the time to attack. So the 4th Great Ninja War would break out. Despite the Leaf's weakened state, they would still battle this war with decent results. While they don't have quantity, they certainly do have quality. With people like Kakashi, a younger Hiruzen, and the vast amount of Uchiha, they'd be able to fight off the war front. Despite the Uchiha participating in this war though, they would still be segregated to the edge of the village with even stricter restrictions placed upon them. Naturally, resentment would begin to build with the Uchiha like it did initially. However, I'd argue maybe accelerated due to the tighter restrictions. I believe that this war would be pretty short-lived, lasting around 3 years. With how peaceful Hiruzen is, I'd imagine he'd want to propose a peace treaty to the Cloud. While A would be reluctant, he quickly realizes that he has the Leaf in the perfect position. So he proposes that he would call a ceasefire in return for the head of the Hyuga clan corpse. Like in canon, Hizashi would kill himself and be handed over only for his eyes to be destroyed sneakily. The Cloud cannot complain due to their request technically being fulfilled, so the 4th Great Ninja War would end. While this does seem inconsequential, there would be a few results from this. Firstly, it's likely that Itachi would awaken his Mangekyo way earlier than he did in canon, as he'd have to watch so much bloodshed. This means that shockingly he'd be even stronger, if you can imagine that. Secondly, the Uchiha clan would be planning their coup way earlier. Not only are they treated even worse here, but with how weak the Leaf is after fighting a war and after the Kyuubi attack, it'd be rather easy. This would also mean that Shisui's death and the Uchiha massacre all happened earlier, leading to Itachi fleeing. While he wouldn't immediately head to the Akatsuki, I'm sure he'd eventually end up there. Finally, the Leaf would be turning younger children into genin for a few years after the war. This is something they did in canon after the Third War, which is why people like Itachi and Shisui and Kakashi were shinobi way earlier. This means that the Konoha shinobi would all become ninja at earlier points. I'd imagine they'd even all become Chunin in this time, though I imagine Hiruzen wouldn't let them become Jonin so easily. This means that they'd all obviously be stronger arriving into current day. For the most part, they wouldn't really add anything irregular to their arsenals, being almost identical to canon. Some differences would arise in Sakura though. About Tsunade in the village, she'd instead focus on learning Genjutsu, becoming a Genjutsu specialist in the process. There's also a difference in Sasuke. Having Kakashi as a mentor earlier would drastically increase his strength, allowing him to learn various jutsu that he previously never did. It's almost as if it's fate that two former rivals ended up becoming mentors to two boys destined to become rivals. As for Naruto, his training would be rough. He wouldn't be given a name, merely being called Ninetales. Toby made it clear that names didn't matter and puts ideas in the boy's head that he'd raise him to be a hero, for he'd be the one to save mankind from this hell they're in. Whenever Toby was busy with other matters, Naruto would remain in the Rain Village, where he'd usually have supervision from the two Akatsuki members. It was usually Konan though, as Pain doesn't want to do it. Konan was definitely the softest on the boy, seeing images of Yahiko and the younger Nagato within it. She was the one who had to teach him the ninja basics, though it was made apparent early on that his chakra control would never be good enough to use things like the clone jutsu. As for Pain, he'd showed disdain for Naruto. It was his belief they should have simply gotten rid of him, not train him up as some pet, so he wouldn't bother spending any unnecessary time with him. As for Toby's training, it'd be the most intense. He'd take Naruto into the Kamui dimension to avoid being overheard, allowing them the perfect training opportunity. Since they need the Ninetales, Toby would mess with Naruto's seal to make it much weaker, allowing Naruto to use the Ninetales chakra easier. Because of this, he'd get significant training in using Ninetales chakra. It's not like with KCM where he takes the chakra, but instead he allows the hatred to flow through him, to use the chakra. So he can basically use up to the third tail cloak, while remaining in some level of control. He'd also be trained to use the Biju Dharma as a weapon. He isn't base though, making it a nigh impossible task. More often than not, it ends in a big explosion that Toby has to save him from. Naruto would come to devote himself to Madara, seeing himself as a tool in order to act out the Eye of the Moon plan. As he grows up, Naruto would eventually head out on missions, for the sole reason of gaining profits for the group, as that's what they desperately require. He is ordered not to use the Ninetales chakra unless absolutely necessary so he doesn't get found out. The odd rumor would float around about a Ninetales boy, but nothing that anyone takes seriously. While he never gets any serious profits, he'd finally found himself a job that'll net him some serious cash. Back in the Leaf, during this time Sasuke would be returning from a mission, heading straight to the Hokage's office for another assignment. Hiruzen asks him if he wishes to take a break, has been doing a lot lately, but Sasuke just tells him he's fine. So he tells Sasuke about this basic escort mission that Old Man Tazuna requires to the Land of Waves. While Sasuke sees it as below him, he does as he's told. To make sure he's not overworked, Hiruzen assigns Sakura to take the mission with him, which he is more than happy to do. As they walk, Sakura tries making small talk with Sasuke, who is aloof as ever, all the while Tazuna grumbling about kids these days. While they walk, they come across a puddle in the road, despite the fact that it hasn't rained. This then leads to the Demon Brothers attacking Sasuke with their chains. They go for the kill on the Uchiha, shocking them at the fact that it was none other than a lightning clone that takes both of them down. After tying them up, Sasuke begins questioning them, as well as Tazuna, about what is really going on, leading to Tazuna explaining the situation with Gato. It leaves Sasuke infuriated at the fact Gato lied, telling him they're going back to the Leaf. Tazuna begs Sasuke to help him, but Sasuke won't budge. The fact he lied about what mission he needed solely to get our payment makes this mission null and void. They turn him back. Now. As he turns around though, he's helpless with the kunai flying at his head. Luckily Sakura is on guard, enough to deflect it with her own. Wanting to locate his opponent, Sasuke activates his Sharingan looking at his opponent by their chakra. He reveals he can see him, telling him to come out. Naruto leaps out of the trees, standing off against both Chunin who oppose him. Sasuke deactivates his Sharingan as he steps forward, telling Sakura to stay with the client. Fated rivals stare each other down, locking eyes intensely, which is where we're going to leave off the story for right now. While this part was mostly set up, I do think it's an interesting story nonetheless, and it can only get more interesting. So hit the subscribe button if you want to see the story continued. Also hit the like button and let me know you want to see a part 2. And yeah, bye!